Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the biggest bust at every single position for fantasy football in 2021 based upon current average draft position. I'm going to be talking about one quarterback, one running back, one wideout, and one tight end that I feel like are going to be busts for fantasy football in 2021. A couple of days ago, I actually made a video that is the complete opposite of this. It is the biggest value pick at each position. So after you watch this one, you kind of heard the negative. Maybe you want to hear the positive. If you haven't watched that already, you can check that out on my channel. And if you guys do end up enjoying this video at any point, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. It helps me out a ton if you subscribe, but it's going to help you out in big ways as well. Same thing happens if you hit the like button or you leave a comment or you do both. It just puts my video higher up in the algorithm so that more people can watch it. It really does help me out a ton, so thank you to all of you guys that do that. So we're going to begin this video with the running back position, and this running back really stuck out like a sore thumb to me. There's a couple of running backs that I think probably have the potential to bust, but this guy seems like he is going to bust directly onto your face like your name was Mia Malkova. I think that it is going to be very clear, at least to me, that this guy's going to be a bust, but people are still going to continue to draft him. That is underdog ADP, running back 21, overall pick 45.2, former first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. Basically, a former fantasy football #1 draft pick, at least last season. In a lot of leagues he was. That's running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, Josh Jacobs. In 15 games last year, Josh Jacobs finished as running back 8 in PPR, 8.5 PPR, as well as running back number 8 in standard. Going into last season, I put a heart around Josh Jacobs. Basically, I loved Josh Jacobs going into last season because John Gruden was out there spitting his game to the beat reporters. He was spitting sweet nothings into their ears, talking about how Josh Jacobs is going to be seeing these additional receiving opportunities, because in 2019, in his rookie campaign, Josh Jacobs was basically allergic to catching the football. He was not given the opportunity to catch the ball, but going into 2021, John Gruden built up this narrative. The GM, the owner, they're building up this narrative all about Josh Jacobs being the pass-catching running back of your fantasy football wet dreams, right? And that's not what he was, but he still finished as a top 10 running back, right? Averaging 15.4 PPR points per game, 14.3 half PPR points per game, 13.2 standard points per game. Meaning, from a points per game perspective, he was running back 15 in PPR, 13.5 PPR, and running back number 11 in standard. Now, before free agency ended up happening, I was pretty psyched to get Josh Jacobs on my team again, because I understood the fact that he wasn't going to catch the ball, but I knew that Josh Jacobs was the guy in this backfield. John Gruden drafted him in the first round, but it didn't seem like John Gruden was necessarily committed to Josh Jacobs, but he was basically stuck in that scenario because it was just Josh Jacobs in that backfield. The other backups did not matter at all to me. They did not relatively scare me at all, and they basically did not scare anyone at all. No one was thinking that Josh Jacobs would lose his job at all going into the 2021 NFL season. We figured it was going to be another workhorse year of Josh Jacobs. Whether or not he was going to be able to catch passes did not really matter, because he was still probably going to finish as a top 10, top 12 running back as long as he was able to stay healthy. But John Gruden did his thing. He went onto his cellular device and called up a guy named Kenyon Drake. And he told him, Kenyon, I wish I could do the John Gruden accent. Kenyon, fucking get on. He gets on the phone with Kenyon Drake, and he tells him to come his way to Las Vegas from Arizona. And from that point on, the second I saw the news blurb that Kenyon Drake has signed with the Las Vegas Raiders, all of my hope for Josh Jacobs finishing as a top 10 guy was gone. His top 20 potential, in my opinion, gone. Vamonos. It just, to me, does not seem like John Gruden gives half of a fuck. He doesn't even give a quarter of a fuck about Josh Jacobs. That's how it seems, at least to me, that he doesn't care about Josh Jacobs. And I have a strong feeling that any potential upside that Josh Jacobs had to catch a bunch of balls is completely gone. Last year, Josh Jacobs had 45 targets, which is about 3 per game, 24th at running back. So again, nothing special, but better than what was really happening in 2019. He also had 33 receptions, 24th at running back, 238 receiving yards, 25th at running back. So that was all right, but there was room for, more. Room for better, to do better. But Kenyon Drake signs there. He basically grabs your balls and twists them until you get testicular torsion. That's what he did, because Josh Jacobs has been cucked by Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is still a solid NFL running back, regardless of how about last year. I told you guys to draft Kenyon Drake, and he was not that great. I'll admit it. I admit it like Drake in that one song, the name I forgot about it, but I'll admit it right to your face. He was not the guy last year. Kenyon Drake was not the guy I thought he was. But if he's not that guy, he's still a guy. He's still a running back that is going to compete in this backfield for touches. He just is, and he will be getting carries, in my opinion. 273 carries last season for Josh Jacobs, third highest at running back. That is going down the fucking drain. 1,064 rushing yards, eighth highest at running back. He had 12 total tugs, fourth on the season. I don't see how Josh Jacobs can put up these numbers again. I don't. With Kenyon Drake, I just don't see it. I think that Josh Jacobs last year, he was only running back 15 in points per game. That's because he wasn't playing all that great every single week because he doesn't have that pass catching ability, and he's also not Derrick fucking Henry, who's going to rush for 2,000 yards on the season. Now with Kenyon Drake there, with the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders completely dismantled their offensive line, they're bringing new pieces in, sure, but the offensive line, in my opinion, has been downgraded. I don't know any possible way Jacobs finishes as anything higher than running back probably 24. I think his upside is very limited. Unless Kenyon Drake was to get hurt, knock on wood, we don't hope for injuries, but if Kenyon Drake was to get hurt, then Josh Jacobs would probably be a top 12 running back again, and I'd be on here telling you that old Nick was a fool for thinking this, but Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake in the same backfield causes big worries, in my opinion. Some people will still take the bait on Josh Jacobs. They'll still draft him, and they'll think that Kenyon Drake will do fucking nothing, but I'm telling you, Kenyon Drake is going to do enough here to completely derail Josh Jacobs' season. There is no way that I think Josh Jacobs is going to have anywhere near a good season in 2021, and I'm going to be completely fading him in basically all of my leagues. Next up, we are on to the wide receiver position. We are about 7 minutes into this video. If you guys have ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Now, the next player, this is a guy that I have basically taken my shovel, dug this guy a fucking grave, and I'm just waiting for him to jump in it. And it's been for years now. I've hated on this guy since I made my YouTube channel, or since I started really making fantasy videos in 2019. I told you Odell Beckham Jr. sucks in 2019. No one listens. I told you he sucked in 2020. People don't listen. And I'm going to tell you, he sucks again. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. right now is coming off the board as wide receiver number 28. Underdog ADP 63.8. So Odell Beckham Jr. now is finally getting put into an area where it may be a little more acceptable to draft him, right? Because he's not being looked at as this top 24 wide receiver, but the more and more I think about it, the more I realize that underdog ADP wide receiver 28 is fugazi. It's fugazi. It's a wazi. It's a woozy. Because Odell Beckham Jr. will not be drafted as ADP wide receiver 28 when it comes to draft season. He just won't be. Everyone knows Odell Beckham Jr. Everyone knows the one-handed catch, reach back like 1-3. Everyone knows about Odell. They all remember the past where Odell Beckham Jr. was one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL, where you could have guessed Odell Beckham Jr. was going to be wearing one of those Hall of Fame jackets 15 years from now, right? Back then, that's what you were thinking. Odell was on this war path like Chris Kyle, fucking sniping people off. Odell was literally making the defense his bitch. He was just the best wide receiver in the NFL, and then it all collapsed. Just like every great player, eventually it crumbles. But it crumbled early. It didn't take till Odell got up there in age for it to eventually slow down. It just got to the point where Odell Beckham Jr. was on that boat, and ever since then, it's been over for Odell Beckham Jr. And again, I think that Odell Beckham Jr. can eventually turn it around, but the fact that he's on the Cleveland Browns to me tells me one thing. That's that is a team that likes to run the ball. Odell plays receiver. So, in my opinion, on the team he is on, with how much he has kind of digressed, his skill set hasn't gotten better, I don't see any way that Odell is a top 24 wide receiver, which he will be drafted to be in August. I believe that the people drafting on Underdog right now are too sharp for the normal people. Most normal people, your fucking Jenny from accounting, Joe from sales, that you play in your fantasy league with, frankly, loves Odell Beckham. They think Odell Beckham Jr. is still the Odell from the Giants, so he will continue to get talked up every year. This guy's going to get talked up by other fantasy analysts, and then he is going to completely and utterly fail you for what seems to be the 4th season in a row. In 7 games last year, Odell played as wide receiver 89 in PPR, 85.5 PPR, wide receiver 75 in standard. From a points per game perspective, Odell Beckham Jr. was wide receiver 39 in PPR, 35.5 PPR, tied with Kupp and Shepard, and wide receiver 25 in standard, tied with Terry McLaurin, averaging 12.4 PPR points per game, 10.8 half PPR points per game, and 9.1 standard points per game. So don't go ahead and tell me in the comments, because there are Odell Beckham Jr. defenders that, oh, he was great when he was playing. No, the fuck he wasn't, because when he was healthy in those games, he wasn't even a top 25 wide receiver for fantasy football. Now, I can see a way that Odell returns back to his old form and actually plays quite well, but the thing is, I just can't see it in Cleveland. The fact that they like to run the ball so heavily with head coach Kevin Stefanski there, with Nick Chubb, with Kareem Hunt, and the fact that the team looked better after Odell Beckham Jr. got hurt, I just don't understand how anyone can talk themselves back into Odell Beckham Jr. I just do not see it. Last year, Odell had 44 targets for 23 receptions because he was dropping the ball left and right, 319 receiving yards, and he had 4 total touchdowns. His catchable target rate was not the greatest last year, 68.2, but I'm just going to take that number, throw it out the window. Even though that might tell you that Baker wasn't throwing it the most accurately his way, I just felt like that number just is not true based upon what I was watching last season. But maybe it is true, and maybe Odell Beckham Jr. was just getting the bad end of the stick or something, right? And maybe if the ball is thrown to him more accurately next season, we see a new Odell Beckham Jr., but I just cannot see it. I just don't understand any narrative towards where Odell Beckham Jr. returns back to form and becomes that guy he was a couple of years ago. I can see him maybe doing it in a different uniform, but in Cleveland, to me, it's just not going to happen. And then when you guys are talking about this now, maybe I can understand you drafting him as wide receiver 28, right? I can kind of understand it because the upside is there. But when he becomes wide receiver 24, and then the next week he's wide receiver 20, and then eventually you're drafting him in the 4th fucking round again, then just remember, you heard it here first when I'm fading him at wide receiver 28, to remember to do the same when he gets hit with the gawk 9,000. People are sucking this guy's cock off. People will always do it. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be a bust in 2021. Next up, we got the quarterback, and this is a complete and utter just play on the fact of where he's getting drafted. I do not think this guy's actually going to be a bust this year and actually suck, but I'm telling you, it is a bad move to draft this guy where he's going to get drafted right now, and this could be any player, and this would be any player at the quarterback position who is the first overall pick at the quarterback position, because they always get drafted too high and they probably won't finish as the quarterback 1. That is quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. ADP quarterback number 1 right now. Overall ADP pick number 35.7. Now, don't get your panties in a bunch in the comment section or start thinking, Nick, Patrick Mahomes, why do you think he sucks? He doesn't suck. He's really fucking good, and he's my quarterback 1 going into next season, but everyone will draft Patrick Mahomes too high. Every single year, people draft the quarterback position too high when you should be rating on the quarterback position and building up the running backs, building up the wide receivers. It's so hard for me to call anyone a bust at the quarterback position unless you draft them too high, and that is going to be the case with Patrick Mahomes. In 15 games, finishing as quarterback 4 last season in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, and quarterback 3 in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues, averaging 25 4-point per passing touchdown points per game and 30 6-point per passing touchdown points per game. From points per game perspective, he was quarterback 3 in 4-point and quarterback number 2 in 6-point. So again, this does not mean in any way that I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be bad. But what I do think is that you should not draft Patrick Mahomes because you're paying too high of a price. What's the difference between Patrick Mahomes and a guy like Josh Allen? What's the difference between Patrick Mahomes and a guy like Justin Herbert, a guy like Russell Wilson, a guy like Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow? One of those guys that goes later and has that top 5 potential and could be the number 1 overall quarterback. The difference is that instead of drafting a guy in round 2 or 3 where people are going to draft Mahomes, instead of having a guy like Aaron Jones on your team or Najee Harris, you have Patrick Mahomes. And while Patrick Mahomes is cool, he's the best quarterback in the NFL and could legitimately be the best quarterback to ever grace the gridiron. That shouldn't surprise anyone with that take. He's so fucking good. But you are wasting your pick, in my opinion, drafting him in in 2 quarterback leagues, super flex leagues. Take this take and throw it out the fucking window because it's stupid in those kind of leagues because you have to play 2 quarterbacks. But in a normal 1 quarterback league, Patrick Mahomes is going to probably get drafted potentially in the first round in your at-home league because of his name value. And he is going to get drafted highly in leagues where people know how to play fantasy football because people still like to draft the quarterback position early, and he will be the first guy off the board. So understand that this does not mean that Patrick Mahomes is going to suck, but he's probably not going to finish as the quarterback 1. Last year, he was my quarterback 1. He was most people's quarterback 1. Doesn't finish as that. So why even bother taking the pick? Sure, I understand that it might be a little bit riskier, in your opinion, to go with a guy later, but just take Mahomes off your board and just draft someone later. It is going to be a much better decision. Again, Patrick Mahomes is my quarterback 1. I love him in fantasy football, but I'm just not willing to pay the price. So that's why Pat Mahomes is going to be a bust, but he's not really. It's kind of just a loophole, a poop hole loophole type of deal here for Patrick Mahomes. So don't get mad, please. I love Patrick Mahomes, and I wish him the best this season. I hope he plays good. Next up, we have another player that I genuinely like, but for some reason, this guy's ADP is too damn high. Kyle Pitts, tight end of the Atlanta Falcons, formerly of the Florida Gators. Chomp. First round pick overall 4 in the 2021 NFL Draft. Underdog ADP 46.7, up 9.23 slots in the last week. Now, I love Kyle Pitts, and I talked him up in the offseason. I talked him up in the draft videos. I talked him up in other videos as a must-draft tight end. But I talked about when I would not be willing to draft Kyle Pitts and what the scenario would be where I'm scared of Kyle Pitts, and we have reached that scenario. We've reached the point in the season where Kyle Pitts is overdrafted. What's crazy is Kyle Pitts' upside is so huge, this dude can't even drink a beer legally right now. He's 20 years old. I love Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be amazing, but his ADP is tight end number 4, and no rookie tight end has ever been this good in the NFL ever for fantasy football in the rookie season. This would legitimately have to be the biggest outlier season ever for Kyle Pitts to be worth where you're drafting him. And I understand why he's being drafted this high, because you flip on the tape of Kyle Pitts, tight end out of Florida, and your eyes ejaculate on your monitor, onto your television screen. It ejaculates everywhere because the guy is a freak of fucking nature. No one compares a tight end to Calvin Johnson, Megatron. No one says things like that, but people talk up Kyle Pitts this way. His college stats are great, and understand they don't really use tight ends this heavily in college, and his numbers are still huge. 2019, plays in 13 games, 54 receptions on 79 targets, 649 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Last season in 2020, 8 games played, 43 receptions on 67 targets, 770 receiving yards, and 12 total touchdowns. The guy is a monster. He is a beast of a man, but going this high is just irrational. It's irrational because the guys going ahead of him, Kittle, Kelsey, Waller, are the elite at the tight end position. So you're telling me Kyle Pitts in his rookie season is knocking on the fucking door, knock, 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 to be up there with them? To me, that's crazy. Would I be surprised if it happens? No. But I would rather wait and take TJ Hawkinson in the next round, or Mark Andrews in the next round, or punt the tight end position and take Gesicki later, take Tyler Higbee later, take Irv Smith later. It's just crazy. It is. It's just too crazy for me to pull the trigger on Kyle Pitts at this price. Just like with Patrick Mahomes, I love the player. I just hate the price. And the price has continued to go up. May 27th, around a month ago, he was picked 61 based upon current ADP, and it kept rising every week. He went from 61, May 27th, and then on June 3rd, he was picked 57. And then after that, on June 10th, 55, and then he climbed on June 17th to pick 50, and now he is picked 46.7. Do not overpay for Kyle Pitts in 2022. The guy will probably be a monster. It takes time to develop at the tight end position in the NFL level. Would it surprise me if he blows the back out of defenses this year? No. But at this price, the risk is so heavy for the reward, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about these players. Do you agree with it? Do you hate the fact that I took a loophole and talked about Patrick Mahomes? Because in reality, I don't really see that many guys busting inside of the top 12. I was going to take Jalen Hurts, but I understand the upside with Jalen Hurts to why he's not on there. So I just went with the cop-out answer and went with Patrick Mahomes. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. So thank you guys again for watching. Make sure if you made it this far in the video, write down below in the comment section, dog. I love you guys all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you stay safe. Happy Thursday. It's Thirsty Thursday, baby. Only one day off of Friday. I love you guys all from deep down in my heart. Let's keep on pumping. It's almost July. And then guess what? It's draft season in August. It's almost draft season. It's creeping up on us. It felt like just a couple weeks ago, it was the draft. And now it's almost time to be fantasy drafting. So make sure you're not the asshole who is cramming the day before, like you're taking an exam in college. You're cramming the day before. That's what I did in college. But I don't do that for fantasy football because I care about fantasy football. In college, you should care about it, but I find it hard to care about. I love you guys all. Make sure you stay safe. Again, I love you all. You have any questions, leave it in the comments. You ever need to talk to someone, DM me on Twitter. I always try to answer, especially if you have a problem, you're not feeling good, you need someone to talk to, please reach out to me, because it would be terrible if you need someone to talk to and I'm not there to help you. So please make sure that you ask. If you ever need any help, please talk to me. Thank you guys. I love you guys all. Make sure that you stay safe and make sure you have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, guys, good boy.